Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trail Talk Tuesdays. I'm Brittany Holan with Kansas Trails Inc., and I'm your host for today's episode. We're so glad you're tuning in today to episode 5 of our 6-part fall webinar series. Before we kick things off, I have a couple of exciting announcements. First, big news is our KTI Trailcraft trail building training series, and it's officially open for registration. So, Trailcraft is a hands-on foundational workshop designed for aspiring trail builders with limited or no experience. It's free, but space is limited, and applications are now being accepted through December 15th. If you or someone in your community has been wanting to learn the fundamentals of sustainable trail building, this is the perfect opportunity. We'll drop the link in the chat here in a little bit. The next reminder is that next month we're wrapping up our fall webinar series with episode 6, featuring Michelle Archer with the Harbinger Consultancy, and we'll be diving into a super important topic: trail accessibility. Michelle brings a wealth of brings an exceptional background to this work. She helps conservation, heritage, and economic development organizations collaborate with small towns and rural communities on preservation, sustainability, and community-driven projects. Her expertise and perspective make her the perfect voice to guide us through how accessibility can and should be the future for trail development in Kansas. We're super excited for her session, so make sure to join us on December 9th. And registration is also available through our Facebook and our website. So now let's get into today's conversation. This week, we're highlighting 4 incredible trails located in small communities across Kansas. We've titled this episode Small Towns, Big Ideas, because rural communities across our state are proving that trail development isn't just for the big metro areas, and it's really transforming small towns in meaningful, lasting ways. Trails in rural settings play a major role in community connection, economic growth, rural health and wellness, and quality of life and talent attraction. Today, you're going to hear from 4 ladies who are creating big impact through thoughtful trail development in their own communities. Our speakers today include Micha Cook from Johnson, Kansas. She's going to share her insights on the Tumbleweed Trail and how this project is strengthening outdoor access in her community. Barber from Waterville, Kansas, highlighting the Lake Idlewild Trails and Nature Center initiative that are helping elevate Waterville's trail experiences. Gail Roy from Norton, Kansas, who's going to showcase the Cottonwood Trail located along the southern edge of Norton in the Elmwood City Park. And Jennifer Heuhl from Sylvan Grove, Kansas, who's going to discuss the Sylvan Grove Community Trail and the role that local trails play in enhancing tourism and rural livability. All right, without further ado, Micha, let's get started. Oh, I didn't even slide any of the slides forward on myself. Oh, well, there's Michelle. And here's a great, real quick before Micha gets started, here's just a visual of where everybody's located. And we've got such great representation for the state today in our webinar. So super excited. All right, Micha.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Could you turn up a little bit louder?
Any better?
A little bit.
Let me see if I can figure out how to adjust my.
I think you're good.
Are you sure?
Is everybody else? Can everyone else hear her? Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, my name's Micha, and like she said, from Johnson, Kansas, down here in the southwest corner. A lot of folks from central Kansas or eastern Kansas think Wichita or Pratt is about as far west as you can go. That is absolutely not true. There's still the whole other half of the state out here. So yeah, we're out here. We're pretty rural. Next slide, please. So we created a state and county health coalition several years ago, 5, 6, maybe even a little bit more. Um, our health department came to just different businesses in the community and was looking for volunteers to be a part of the health coalition. They were applying for the chronic disease risk and reduction grant, and one of the stipulations of the grant to qualify is to create a coalition. And so we've been established now, like I said, I can't remember for sure. I'm thinking probably 6 years, because when we hit COVID, we kind of hit a stall, but we've been established and we've done a few things. And one of those, our biggest one probably, is our Tumbleweed Trail that's located at our city park here in Johnson. Johnson itself probably has about 1,400 residents. We are very small. The county, Stanton County, is usually pretty close to 2,000. Okay, next slide. So here's our city park. Can you see my mouse or no?
No.
No, okay. Because I'm not sharing, that's true. So Batten Park, there right in the center, you can see, yeah, are some playground areas. The big white rectangular is our swimming pool, but this was obviously taken in the winter. You can see there's no leaves on the trees and it's very, very dry. But that's our swimming pool. We have tennis courts. Toward the top, you can see on the right is an outdoor basketball court and sand volleyball. Right to the left of that is another square. You can just see parts of it. Yep, sand volleyball there. And this lot over here on the left, where the start and finish X is, was just open and bare. And we were like, something needs to happen out there. Like that, it's county land. It's located right, in the city limits, and it's right next to these areas. It's like, what can we do? And there was a group of individuals that had already been meeting outside of the coalition that were trying to figure out about putting a trail in. There's some running enthusiasts basically wanted somewhere to hit the trails, or get their miles in, and they just weren't real organized and didn't have a lot of direction. And so we kind of took this over. And so this is the map of our trail. Just kind of shows you just go around the west loop, and then you come and you go up down along the trees by the sand volleyball, and it's kind of cut off, but by the basketball court, then you loop around, and then you've got this little east loop. Yep, right there. Then you backtrack that center section by the basketball courts and volleyball courts, and it surprisingly went right at 1 mile. So that was perfect. Next slide, please. So when we took over the project of creating a trail, like I said, the west lot is owned by the county. So we knew we needed to involve the county commissioners. So we went to them and asked for permission. Hey, can we use this ground? Nothing's been there since I grew up here, and there's never been anything there. Every once in a while, they'll throw up some soccer goals. But other than that, there's never been anything go on over there. It's actually managed by our Stanton County Park Board. So we needed to visit with them. And then the city of Johnson, because it's located within city limits. So we just needed to get everybody on board and get permission, and make sure everybody was okay with us trying to move forward with this project. Next slide, please. In the early stages of our health coalition, when we knew that this trail was kind of one of our projects that we were looking to do, we wanted to find out if the community would use it. We didn't want to put forth our efforts in finding grants and putting forth a lot of time in applying and trying to find funds if nobody was going to use this. So we did a community health needs assessment, which assessed a large variety of topics. But one of the questions was, if we had a trail in the community, would you use it? And 82% responded that they would, and their families, children, whoever, would use a walking, running trail if it was available. So that gave us a pretty good indicator that, hey, we think this would be a good idea. This would be worth our time and energy. Next. So naturally, we got some bids and some estimates from some of our construction companies and got an idea on how much this was going to cost. So then we had to start looking for grants. And the two that we found that matched our needs and our vision, the first one was the Strategic Economic Expansion and Development Grant from the Kansas Department of Commerce. And that grant had a limit to how much funding was available. And that was only going to cover a portion of the trail. And it wasn't enough to cover the West Loop. It would have covered the East Loop, but we were like, that's such a small section. So we actually, with that first grant, we did the middle section, which, if you remember on the map, went by the trees, the sand volleyball, and the basketball. And then, so that was completed one spring, summerish. Then we came across the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks grant, and the funding was much more. And so we applied for that. And with what we had remaining, the West Loop and then the East Loop, we were able to get all the sections completed that made it what it is today. Next. So with our grant applications, we also did some fundraising. Several of the reasons we did fundraising is a lot of the grants require matches. Sometimes it's 20%, sometimes if you're really rural like we are, they will maybe only request 10%, but they do require that you help with the financial upfront costs. And so we needed to have some funds available for matches. And what we found out is that the grant providers also will give priority the higher percentage of a match that you have. So this just says 2022, but we did this. It was like a 5K challenge, a 1 mile challenge. And then we have a gym that's located on our main street. And they would come out and do workouts all at the same time. And so it's an all-encompassing, what we call the Freedom Wellness Challenge, because it was right around Independence Day. And we did this at least 3 different years. And also one of the things is that, sorry, real quick, at the very bottom, some of your costs like engineering and a lot of those things are not covered by the grant. And so that was one thing that the fundraising also helped us cover, those costs that grants will specify we won't pay for this. So, okay, sorry about that. Next. So we kind of divided up our project into phases. So phase 1, after we visited with the park board that manages the grounds out there, they wanted to start with a dirt trail and see if anybody would use it. And so that's kind of where we started. Phase 2, like I said, we did concrete on the middle section. That was all the funds that grant would cover. Phase 3 was when we were able to finish the west and the east. And then phase 4, we've added some bench pads and benches along. And last spring in March or April, we planted some trees. So it's okay if when you're looking at this and you see these you go to, a city or a small town and you see these trails and they've got benches and they've got lighting and they've got this and that and trees and vegetation and landscaping. It's okay to divide it into sections. I know it feels like, oh, we're never going to get there, but if you just stay adamant and create your phase list, your to-do list, this year this is what we're going to do. Next year this is what we're going to do. Sometimes you have to break it up, and that's fine. Next. So this was phase one. This is what it started out as. Just dirt. We had the city come out with just like a blade, kind of like if you were shoveling snow, and they just bladed. We kind of marked off the path with some flags and said, this is where we want it. So they just came out and bladed it up and created just a nature path for us out at the park. And we just kind of watched it, monitored it, and was like, okay, who's using it? How often are they using it? Do we think we should go on with this? And it did. It didn't draw in a whole lot, but once we kind of discovered that we think this is really going to be a good benefit, a good asset to the community, then we started moving on with some of the other phases.
Hey, Micah,
Next.
how did you track usage?
Well, my office conveniently is a block away. So I can just step out my door and take a peek over there. Or when, like, especially in the summer months, because we have baseball right across the street, we have softball right across the street, we have the swimming pool there, then there's people coming and going in that area quite a bit. And you just kind of like, when I would drop my daughter off at the swimming pool, I would just take a peek and, oh, there's 3 people on the trail. And yeah, so just observation, small community, and it's like the hub of recreation and gathering. And so you're there almost every day, especially in the warmer months, so you can just kind of get an idea. Okay, next. So before we actually started any of the concrete, we went on ahead and installed lighting because they were going to have to do some digging, and we didn't want to have, after the concrete was put in, destroy any of the sidewalks. So we went on ahead and got the lighting installed a little bit sooner than what we initially thought we would. But I mean, it ended up being a good decision. That way we weren't trying to put in electrical lines after the concrete was already poured and having to destroy any of the sidewalk. Next. So this was phase two. This was the middle section that goes, the picture on the right is where it goes straight by that tree row back toward the volleyball courts. And then the picture on the left here is just on the other side of the basketball courts where it's about to do a really tight U-turn. You couldn't really see it on the map with the yellow, but so this was phase two when we had the funds to just cover this middle section. Next. Then after we had applied for the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks grant and we were awarded the funds, this is the start of the west section. Got our construction guys out there. They had already done their forming and the groundwork, and you can see they've started pouring here. And you can see our sign there on the left. And we put Stanton County Trail Project signs up right when you come into that west section. We had another one of these, and you can see we've got the little map there in the middle that shows what it's going to be when it's all complete. That gives the distances, that same thing that we saw, I think, on like slide 2, just so that we could advertise to the community, this is what we're working on, this is our vision, this is going to be the finished project. And then at the bottom, we put a list of everybody that was supporting us in this, just to kind of give some recognition and hopefully keep their support. Okay, next. So this was the completion. That's our local construction company. And yeah, that's the project sign that's in the southwest corner that I was also referring to. So you can see that it's still pretty dirty. They had just finished probably that day, but we were pretty excited that we had gotten the entire thing finished. And they actually did the smaller east loop first. And so once they completed this west loop, then it was finished in its entirety. So okay, next. So here we are with phase four. Planted some trees. This is my tree planting crew. Um, just a local guy that helps with all kinds of different projects, and planting trees and flower pots is one of his main areas of expertise. And then a member of our health coalition. And then on the right is my son. I brought him along for help too with his muscles and strength and energy. So we also put some flower pots out beside the benches. You can see next to them, or in the bottom left picture, we added some flower pots this spring just to give it a little bit more aesthetic appeal, and just different kinds of trees in different areas. Let me think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We did 11. We did 11 this spring. New trees. So hopefully once those get more mature, then we'll have some nice shade benches. Okay, next. We did what we called, after everything was kind of established and we got the trees planted in the flower pots, we did a Tumbleweed Trail challenge. We have a Facebook page. And so I just, posted a challenge on the Facebook that, hey, if you're out on the trail, snap a picture and let us know that you're using it. Just that way we can kind of track a little bit. And if anybody's questioning, does anybody even use this thing? You've done all this work. Does anybody even use it? Well, we have some here. So these are just members of our community out walking their dogs, getting some exercise. Next. Just a few more. We've got an older couple. We've got two moms and their kids. A fellow healthcare worker that's out with her headphones on, enjoying the trail. Next. More dogs. An elderly gentleman that lives right next door. He tries to get out there and utilize it on a regular basis. So that's encouraging to see as well. Next. We've had several community events out there. I do an annual 5K that benefits running free, and that's the bottom left picture. We used the trail for our 1 mile portion of the event. And then we had a grand opening ceremony, which is this picture here in the middle, where everybody's in their Christmas gear. It was a very cold day, but we did a 1 mile run also on that day. And then we have a kids running camp that happens in July, and they utilized the trail as well. So those are our running kids that used it in July. Next. And then these are just pictures of kids using it, roller skating, riding bikes. So it's been, we're pretty happy with the usage and the success, and seeing kids, elderly, moms, anybody that's out there utilizing it. It brings a smile to our face that our energy and our efforts were worthwhile. So sorry I went a little bit long. Brittany, you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Ellen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our story. To me, it is a wonderful story, really incredible to our small town. Waterville only has about 700 people, and basically, to win a $136,000 grant and raise $40,000 to do it was like a small miracle for us. So I just want to encourage you all who are listening that you can do it too. If we did it, I bet you can do it. And I'll kind of tell you our story in hopes that you can see yourself in our shoes. So the site is about 40 acres. The city of Waterville owns it. And the neat thing is that the government back in the Depression times, the New Deal, they actually built this small man-made lake. And there's all kinds of flooding back then from the farmland. And with so many unemployed men, they just decided we're going to do infrastructure in the whole country. And somehow Waterville got on the map. So this beautiful bowl-shaped ridged property has the lake at the floor of the bowl, and then it's about 7 acres, and then there's the dam and the shelter there. And so all of this water goes through that lake and then down through the Blue River. The trail project was about 2 years, and we're not quite done with it yet. But the community is so pumped about getting this area back to a restored state that they even want to restore the lake itself and dredge it. And that will have to be a totally different project. Next. So to get a grant, you have to show there's a community need. And Waterville and Blue Rapids are 2 small towns right together. And both of these towns used that little lake as this wonderful community area. They bonded with their families. They got to be friends with their neighbors. And when all of that went away because the lake silted in, for the last 50 years, the community has just not been the same. And so when a new younger mayor came in and said, I remember the times when my family was out at that lake, and it was such a wonderful experience to grow up with. I would love to bring that back. And with that idea, people started forming a lake restoration group. And then I got involved because I was the economic developer for the county, and they didn't know how to write a grant. And so they asked me to come and help. And actually, this was my first trail grant. And so it was a learning experience for me too. But as you can see from those pictures, I mean, they did their proms out there. They had beauty pageants. They had boat races. It was amazing. And I don't know if we'll get it back to that total idea yet, but it was so used. And that's what we wanted to bring back for it. Next one. So to write a grant, you have to show the community need. And so there's really a lack of places to walk in some of these small rural towns. And if we put in a trail around the lake, we would make it ADA. And so we wanted to show that, it needed to be closer to the town. And then Waterville doesn't have many businesses. It mostly has some real nice tourism things. But if we added another thing, like a trail, it would also help their tourism with their Weaver Hotel and their Opera House. And they have a small railroad that's really fun to ride. So we wanted to concentrate too on the economic development. And since it was my first trail grant, I really wanted to make sure I fulfilled what they wanted to hear. So they said they wanted to know how it fulfilled the Kansas SCORP requirements. And so what I did was I looked that up and made sure that every single one of those points, I covered it. For example, community connections. That you're going to see played a really big part in all of this. Cost effectiveness. That came back to the city because if the city owned it, that means the city would maintain it. And that's huge. And of course, we just talked a little bit about economic development. The ADA idea, that would be a safe place when your county is aging, they don't want to walk on broken sidewalks in their small town that just have not been fixed. They really don't want to walk in the middle of the street. So if they had a place where they can get out in nature, the ADA access around the lake, the main loop, is going to be something everybody can use. And then partnerships and development. They partnered with the county development, which was how I came in, and then they partnered with the city. And then there were many other partnerships that reached out from there. They also talked about it being public land. And so the maintenance idea with the city came in there, but also with these grants, there can be leases on public land. And so one thing that turned out to be quite a big project for us was to find out that some of those leases had been made in 1934. And so they were expiring in 2 years. So we had to go to the law office and figure out, how to extend that to make sure that since this grant is supposed to last into perpetuity, where it's taken care of, that those leases would also work out as well. And the last thing they were interested in is safety. And so that was also a part of what we put in there for biking and hiking. Next one. This is our map that we proposed to get the grant. As you can see, the white lines there, that is the city maintained roads that were put in at the very beginning, way back when it was first this dam and this lake was made. And so part of that became part of our trail system where people could make it all the way around the lake. If you'll see the green areas in the east and the west, those are the 2 single track trails. And that covers a lot of the 40 acres. And those are really amazing situations to walk through. There's a lot of different rock formations and things you just don't expect in Kansas. The blue part is the lake trail. And as you see at the north side, there's a bridge needed up there. And there was a partnership there we'll talk about too later. But this was our vision, and we made sure that people could see what we hoped it would be. Next. So it started with the city council because they were the property owner. And so the young mayor got everybody started, but then we also had to make sure they were willing to do the match fund. We needed $136,000 to do the project, but that meant we had to raise the 40K. And so they were willing to do whatever we needed as the restoration committee and help us with that. The council also had a member on it that was on our committee so that he could report back to them, and that worked out super well. Next. So county support is also really important for the project. I was with Partnership for Growth, and so I helped find the grant and then wrote it and helped with making sure that we could get other professional help. It turned out that if there's other government entities in your area, a lot of times they'll help you out too. That's where Brandon Wilson came in. He is part of the Kansas Ag Department. And when I needed help with the environmental review, he stepped right in and helped me out because that's what he did for the farmers. So sometimes just look around a little bit and you might find more help than you would expect. Next. So every town to do a grant has to have community support, and they really need a champion organizer. And for Waterville, Ann Walter is our champion. And without her, there would probably be no match. So I want to give our champion credit here. They can motivate people. And she looked at the people who had parents who enjoyed the lake as alumni families. And those were the families she asked to get on board to help with this match. And they did. because they had that past history. And so that's really an important thing to think about. Who has the passion for trails in your community? She also knew the clubs in her area who would be willing to help. And she's a people person and helped lead others to care about the project. Next. So one of the entities you don't want to forget is your school, because all those kids can use your trail. And so the local school funding was really helpful too. They had a foundation, and so they donated $10,000. And then the teachers committed to use it, even for field trips and taking their classes out. And the shop class has actually made the grills already for the enjoyment of the people who come. So it's amazing when you think about how can I include people in our schools, some really good things can happen. Next. So really look into the local grants as well. I think that is a really super idea. And I want to encourage you, like there's some things this grant will not cover. And we're talking about the same one that you just heard about, the Trails and Recreation Grant. But they don't cover signage and they don't cover restrooms. And so those are two really large things you're going to need. So we tapped Blue Valley Technologies, which is our local internet connectivity type of company, and they're connected with the Rural Foundation Service. And so we were able to write a grant that allowed us to get $5,000 for really quality signage, which I am really excited about. And then we're also applying to local community foundational funds as well and have received some money there. I would really encourage you to watch Tricia with the Office of Rural Prosperity on the Trail Talks #4 because she does an amazing job and tells about how you can stack grants. And I wish I had watched that one before I started this grant because we kind of had to do everything more locally, but it sounds like there's some great state things you can also do. So you can also tap into the closest energy groups. And so we tapped into Evergy, and they take their basically used poles. And I thought this was going to be the poles making the bridge, but no, they fashioned them down and turned out to be this incredible bridge, beautiful. And they saved us between $30,000 and $50,000 to do this. And without that bridge, we could not have had a trail around the lake. So, well, I've got some pictures here to share because they're just pretty inspiring. Next. So another group to stay connected in with is your newspaper. And this is from The Advocate. And Sarah Kessinger was so good about just helping the community know the progress of what was happening with this trail. And here she took some pictures of them building the footbridge at the lake. Next. These are pretty incredible. This is over 100 feet. So it's very substantial and it's just a beautiful place to come and be. Next. So I would say that funding a trail is all about casting your vision. So to the community, the city council, the county, the state and foundational grants, to the schools, to clubs, to the schools, to the youth, to the newspaper, to social media. I mean, I know that sounds like a lot, but when you have excited people and you can put one in charge of each one of those ideas, or you kind of have your finger in them, you're going to have these connections that will really help you get that trail done. So you're just selling your excitement for the positive change that you're hoping that will come with that trail, and people will catch that vision with you. Next. So this is a picture of our site from the top of one of those ridges on the on the bowl that is the dam at the bottom. And I just love this because our county photographer is one of those people that caught the vision too and donates his time to take pictures. And I'm just going to go through a few of these so you get a flavor of this. This is the same scene, just in the summer. Next. Okay, and this one in the top left-hand side, imagine a whole big group of Boy Scouts, which we just had there, around a fire and camping. We're going to have a small camping site and taking a walk on this road here and just seeing where it goes, or listening for those birds that are so rare that we have here at this lake because it's been so quiet for 50 years. And that's who loves to be there right now, are these rare birds. Next. So we just went around and asked people for help because of this vision, so people could enjoy this vision. So thank you for joining me today, and I wish you the best as you go after your vision.
Thank you, Ellen. I just realized that the last time I was on mute, and so I didn't get to give a proper introduction. So my apologies for that. So
Oh, that's okay.
thanks so much, Ellen.
Right.
Next up, we've got Gail from Norton, Kansas. She's going to talk to us about the Cottonwood Trail.
All right, everybody here okay?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for having me on today. And it's fun to listen to the other stories as they share and the process that they went through to get to their trail and comparing it to your own journey with yours. So, our trail is in the northwest corner of Kansas. So when the first presenter shared and said, it's rural and it's Western Kansas, we hear that all the time too, although we're at the other end of the state. Salina, if people recognize Hayes, that's pretty Western, and we're even further than that. So we are up in the northwest corner, and our little story started about 6 years ago in 2019. And ours is a very small stature compared to a lot of what I'm hearing with you guys talking. There were several of us on a group at that time. It was called Live Well Norton, and it was based through our hospital, and there was funding opportunities and different things. And one lady and I were on the Parks and Recs part of it, and we just really started to talk about trails. And they had recently put in an ADA accessible walking trail on the north end of our town with funds from this. That's just basically a sidewalk, but it's in a very safe area. And they did put some benches and the concrete in and everything. And this other lady and I started visiting about what's the possibilities of some nature trails for those people that want to get more into nature. So we were connected with Mike Goodwin, who at that time he had access to Trail in a Box, and we connected with Mike and talked to him about that. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think we had to pay $50 for the Trail in a Box to come out at that time.
It's a membership to the Kansas Trails Council in order to be able to use that. Yep.
Okay, so that was awesome. So between my friend Karen and I, we kind of took this on together. She did more of the paperwork to apply for that. And we had Mike come out, and Mike and Karen and I walked this area. So this is the map that you're seeing is down at our Elmwood Park, which is our city park that's on the south end of Norton. And the area in the center, that is our park. We have a phenomenal park with a beautiful playground and just these massive, massive old cottonwood trees that are just beautiful. That's where our county fair is held at every July. There's a grandstand down there with where demolition derbies are held, and in the day stock car races. I don't think they have had those for a few years. They also just recently in the last couple years put in a mini go-kart track down there. So it's definitely a hub, and it's just a beautiful area. There's an equine center down there, so they do horse clinics and some little rodeos, local rodeos and things. But on where you see the green paths, that follows right along Prairie Dog Creek. And there is a levee there that's on the top that you can walk along and go with that. And our local disc golf course runs in between that, and it even goes up into Elmwood Park. Like, it covers a lot of territory in this. And so this was the area that we chose to do our trail. We had Mike come out a day. I think it was in winter. It was January. I feel like there was snow on the ground. And can you go back to the
Oh, sorry.
other one for just
Sorry.
a minute? That's okay. Um, so we had Mike come out and we walked it together. And if you follow the straight, starting on the left and follow the straight line, and then it stays on the left, and it's a pretty straight line, that is following along the levee. And we knew we wanted to tie in with that. But then the little jagged lines that go down to your right, that takes you right down. Like right there, you can see we're right close to the creek. That takes us along the creek. And so we go down into this wooded area, and then we pop back up to the levee area and we walk it again. And then when we get up a little farther, then we jump back down again. And then we go clear to the end, which almost ties into a road down there. And then you can loop around and you can either walk it all again or you can walk it back on the levee that time. So this does tie in with city property, which I know a lot of you talked about. We had to go to our city council to get approval for the trail. And we also met with members of our disc golf community because we wanted to tie in with that, but we didn't want to intrude with it. I mean, we didn't want to put anything in that would be in their way at any time. So anyway, I think we had about 2 dates set and weather prohibited. And finally, in May of 2019, we got our trailer out here. We had Mike out here. We got a group of volunteers. I think Karen and I visited yesterday. We had about a dozen volunteers. You can go to the next slide now. Thanks. And this shows the actual box, the trailer that we had. And there's a few people missing from this picture that were involved in our blazing of the trail that day, but this was our main crew. And where Mike had came out before, we pretty well had it flagged and marked off. We were able to blaze this out in a day, one literal day that we worked a long day. And with the equipment that's in the trail in a box and with the hands and the volunteers that we had, we were able to blaze it out. So much of the trail was naturally almost already there. But those little areas where we had to dig down into the trees, we had to knock out some small trees, and we had to make the path. We had to make the trail because it wasn't there. It was just wooded areas. So that took a little bit more work, but where we were able to tie in with so much of the city property and the levee that was already there, it made it possible to do in a day. Now, after that, Karen and her husband and myself and my husband, we spent a lot of time down there, and we still had to knock out some small trees and just do clearing, just clearing it out headwise. And I'm short, but my husband's tall. So I would say, oh, that's okay. And he's like, nope, we got to clear that out. So, a little bit of team effort there, but we were able to continue working on it. What I loved about using the natural, it's considered a nature trail, but the natural beauty like you see on the right, this was one of those majestic fallen cottonwood trees that was down there, and it just made this beautiful natural arch. And this is right by hole 13 on the disc golf course, and you can kind of see the width of the trail right there. That's one of the wider spots of the trail. There's places where there is good width, and there's places where it gets a lot more narrow as well. This arch was one of my favorite places on the trail forever and ever. I'd always take pictures with that. But like all good things on a nature course, nature does happen, and it kept getting lower and lower and lower. Pretty soon, about 2 years ago, me at being 5'4", I was having to almost duck under that, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to last. And it came down last winter, and the city was good, and they went down and were able to cut it up and move it out. So that was sad because it was just one of my favorite spots on the trail. But that's what happens when you do have a nature trail. So different than a lot of the trails that we've talked about today. Ours is considered a nature trail. There is no pavement anywhere. It is just the nature, the dirt, and grass. And so it is, if you would walk just along the levee up on the top, it would be ADA accessible. But the parts where you loop down and go into it, probably not, because, you know, it's not always totally balanced. It's not always totally level. It's narrower in some places. But that is the beauty of a nature trail, because that takes you down truly into the trees. So if you stay up on the levee, you can walk along it and see that. The two pictures that you see now, one of the one on the far left is up on the levee. So you can kind of see that it's pretty straight up there, and, you know, strollers and wheelchairs could go along that very fine. And then we did have a ribbon cutting ceremony. We blazed the trail out in May, and then in May of 2019, and then before a home football game, because our football field is also down in that Elmwood Park area that we showed you earlier. We had, before a football game, we had a ribbon cutting ceremony with our local chamber. And we put up our sign and just had people come and walk the trail with us at night, just to have a little bit of exposure to what we had done. So upkeep on the trail, it's a nature trail. And my husband reminds me of that very often. He's like, Gail, this is the nature trail. It's fine. But anytime I walk it, I take my clippers with me, because I'm always clipping things and trying to keep it, you know, free of branches and different things. So right now the trail it's pretty much my upkeep. I mean, I've just volunteered to do that. And I've had that discussion with my husband that down the road, we're going to have to look at getting an organization or somebody involved that will want to keep it up. But I am retired from teaching, and I have the time to do it. And I always tell people it's just my happy place down there. So I do the upkeep. Honestly, every year the upkeep gets a little bit less and less, because the trail is ground so well. There's always clipping to do. There's some weed eating to do, probably 2 or 3 times a year. But, you know, it is less and less. But I do find myself, every time I go down, I just take my clippers. I walked it last week with a retired teacher, and I just said, this is my happy time of year, because there's no upkeep. I know I'm off for about 6 months until the weeds start growing again. But I'm sorry, Brittany, if we go back one more again, 2 years ago, we have a junior high service learning day. And so after I retired from teaching, I signed up to have a group. And so for 2 years now, I've had a group of junior high kids come down in April, and it's between 6 and 10 kids, and I get them for about 2 hours. And they help me do the heavy work of, again, trees that have fallen naturally or things that have to be cut down. If I go down and cut with my little chainsaw, I just will toss it off to the side. And these kids have helped me clean up the trail on the sides. And then we make piles, and the city does come along and pick up those piles for us, which is very, very appreciative. So they have really helped us to clean up the trail and keep that update. We got through in 2 years. Now we've gotten through the whole trail. So when I have them again this April, we'll start at the north end again. And if we can just keep doing that with the kids, it will be awesome. All right, next slide. I've talked to you about how it ties in with our disc golf course. And if you look really close, you see the disc golf, but you see some steps going up there that are just old wooden steps. Those were put in by the disc golfers years and years ago, and we just tied in with that. And I just think that's a pretty picture, because it just kind of goes into the skies, it looks like. The sign is out our west end of the trail that we have. And community impact, it is just amazing how many people will talk to me about how they enjoy the trail. There's avid dog walkers that take their dogs down there. There's families that go down. I will get a phone call, and a family will say, hey, there's a big tree branch down. Just wanted you to know, and maybe you want to go cut it. And I always appreciate that. I post a lot of pictures on Facebook, just on my own personal page, of when I'm down there, either when I'm trimming or when I'm just walking. And people will just comment and they love the trail. And I know it's just getting used so much. And people love to walk trails that are natural, concrete and blazed out. But people also love the nature trails where you just have the beauty of huge cottonwood trees and the falling leaves and the spider webs in the fall and the mosquitoes in the spring, since it ties in with the creek, all those little factors. But there are a lot of people that just find this to be a very calm and peaceful place for them. And so our community has loved it. It was very little cost. We did not have to do any grants. We had a little bit of money with our Live Well Norton that we utilized, and we fed our volunteers. And so it was a very low cost, it didn't take a lot of time for us to get it. And so to me, that was just a great place to start. And to know how many people love using the trail, it makes it all worthwhile. So thanks for having us share about it.
Thank you, Gail. Really appreciate your story, and it's super great addition to your community up there. I know we're running a little low on time, but we're gonna keep going a little late for it's totally fine. We want to hear Jennifer's story too. Thank you so much to all of the great presenters. That this is just so inspiring, especially around Thanksgiving for all the people watching and who will be able to see it on the replay. So without further ado, Jennifer, take it away.
I can be quick.
You're fine.
So, I guess to make it as short as possible, back in 2016, we did like a strategic doing. Everybody was like, there were tons of people in our county that wanted trails. And so we got a healthy living trails committee. And from there, we talked about why do we want to build the trail? Where can we build the trails? Public or private land, all things you need to think about. Who's going to use your trail? And through all of that, we ended up doing a healthy living master plan for the county, and that included trails for several of the cities from Lincoln, Barnard, Sylvan, the communities in our county. And that committee then ended up getting some grant money, help from the Lincoln County Economic Development, and we did basically hired an engineering company to give us an idea of that master plan, all the projects we wanted, and then we did that so that we could get an idea of cost so we could think about grants. Long story short, I was overwhelmed by the cost. One of the things we looked at was KDOT has a sidewalk grant for safe routes to schools. We looked at that, wanting it to be ADA accessible in the communities. And then I just realized, like, Sylvan is a town of less than 300. We don't have those funds. So long story short, I decided basically that if we could just get a nature trail and start having people use it, then we could show evidence that this was going to be beneficial to our community, and from there get some more grants. So and we considered all of those things. At the beginning, there were some people in county, I didn't feel like I had a huge amount of support, and it was like, how can I get this done? I was lucky enough to meet Mike Goodwin at, I think it was the rural brainstorm conference, and I also met Elizabeth Berger, and it was like, how can I make this happen? And doing things like this, like talking to people, what did they do, how did they do it, etc. All of that was like, how am I going to fund this project? And Trail in a Box was my savior, because that was an economically available option to get something started. So with our volunteers, we also are lucky to use our local school does a community service work day every year. And so we got the Trail in a Box, we got the kids to help for that day. And we prepared, you can go to the next slide. Started working on the trail. I didn't feel like I had the city was supportive. We ended up putting it on school land. So they had a bunch of extra land around the school, and that is where we put the trail. Went to the school board, we talked to the city, and with the both of them, we ended up using that land because it was available, and also that the kids could use it daily. The cross country team uses it. They use it for science experiments with their science class, etc. And so it's utilized by them almost daily as well. So that was also a benefit. You can go to the next one. And so as you can see on the sort of the left is the one where we, with the kids' help, Mike and I kind of flagged out a place and then I had the kids help me. And we used, but we weren't going to go inside the tree. There's a tree line all along the school. And then the kids were like, wouldn't it be fun? And I was like, absolutely, it would make it, I mean, in Kansas, it's a lot of flat. I would make it more interesting to go in and out of the tree line that goes all around the school. And so that's what we did. And you can see there from how it looked from when we started to where it is closer to on the clear on the right. I did after doing the initial dirt trail, we did get a grant through Post Rock Community Foundation and Sunflower, and we were able to put some limestone rock on it to make it more solid and to make it less maintenance because a lot of it's grass, and it does help keep the trail open during. And you can go to the next one.
Hey, Jennifer, you guys did the trail do-a-log out there too, right?
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did the trail do a lot. We had a lot of people come through and that, and just like I said, the my favorite thing about it is how cheap it was for us, and then how much we just got a lot of local volunteers utilizing, like I said, the school and things like that. But yeah, they came out and we did that as well. So and the city has a tractor, and then my husband, and then also the city worked together. So that was kind of when we were putting the rock in, and then the maintenance, one thing, if you look on the right, the one thing that I did find out is I have to do a lot more weed control than I thought, even on that rock. We do have some more rock available now that we're trying to get put down, hopefully this winter when it's not so crazy and raining all the time, which is wonderful for. So yeah, so this is just like so that you can see where it was a dirt trail and you can see how it goes in and out of the trees. Yeah, and it's terrible that I only have pictures, it seems like, in winter. So that, yeah, that I guess the big thing is I would just say that I think it's possible if you utilize all the tools, and I think there are a ton available and more people to help you find the cheapest way to do it, to find grant opportunities, and know that you're capable. So I guess that'd be the biggest takeaway I would say is you can do it. Reach out to all of the Kansas Trails Council. They'll connect you with people, and there are grants available, especially if you want to get started. So yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. I went out for that duologue, and I remember
Oh
I
yeah,
saw your thing, I saw your presentation come through, and I was like, that looks so familiar, and it was such a great,
yes.
it's so cool. I love the in and out of the trees.
Yes, yeah, it
Um,
was really fun.
it's
Yeah, and I was
nice.
gonna say like you utilizing that youth, they help you think outside the box, so that's good.
They need community service hours, and
That's right.
trail builders need help.
Works for
Great.
both.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So any questions from anybody that's joined us today, or anything that one of the other presenters maybe thought of after their presentation, or anything else that anybody would like to add? This is just so remarkable, all the things that these communities have accomplished, and with either a lot of funding or zero funding or minimal funding, it just shows that an idea and some sweat equity and lots of time brainstorming and getting the right people involved can really make such a fantastic impact in our small communities in Kansas. Anybody have anything else to add? Well, I can't thank each of you ladies enough for taking the time to put these presentations together and to join us today for this session. I really know that it's going to inspire people to get out there and do some of these things in their communities. This replay will be available on our website, and um, as always, we encourage everyone to visit kstrails.org, Kansas Trail Inc.'s new mapping site. It's map.kstrails.org, and you can find all of these trails that we've discussed today are listed on the KTI website, and we have a great events page where you can go and find different activities throughout the state. And if you have those activities, walks coming up to help, we're happy to help promote your events. And lastly, from all of us at Kansas Trails Inc., happy Thanksgiving. We hope to see everyone next month, December 9th, for our trail accessibility webinar series, or the last one of our series. So we're really looking forward to that. So anyways, thanks again for all the participants. Thanks again for the presenters, and we'll see y'all on the trail.